Welcome to the Critical Thinking Literacy channel. I'm David Balla, and today we're exploring part 3 of our Barnum Effect series, Political Barnumism. In an era where democracy runs on arguments amplified by orders of magnitude online, a citizen who cannot recognize rhetoric masquerading as reason is not an informed voter. They are reliable inventory. Political Barnumism occurs when slogans are designed to be so vague and inclusive that every listener feels they are being addressed uniquely. It exploits our brain's tendency towards subjective validation, the process by which we fill in the blanks with our own hopes and biases. The message says almost nothing, but the listener hears almost everything they already believe. Consider contemporary slogans like "Make America Great Again" or "A New Way Forward." These are quintessential Barnum statements. They provide a blank slate where voters project their own specific desires without requiring concrete policy details. Barack Obama's "Change We Can Believe In" utilized the same mechanism. The word change was deliberately so unspecific that it could mean progress to liberals and reform to moderates, a single phrase achieving coalition building through strategic ambiguity. In this case, one slogan with infinite projections and zero accountability. But most people know this much. What most of us don't know is what happens when political Barnumism evolves past the slogan and into what researchers call the dog whistle. The dog whistle is a more sophisticated variant of political Barnumism. Where the standard Barnum statement is vague enough to mean anything, the dog whistle is coded enough to mean different things to different audiences simultaneously. In 1981, Republican strategist Lee Atwater explicitly explained the evolution. He described how overt racial appeals became politically counterproductive over time, so campaigners gradually abstracted them, first into cultural proxies like states' rights and forced busing, then further into purely economic language like tax cuts and welfare reform. The messaging became so abstract, Atwater said, that the racial content could be plausibly denied, while the emotional trigger remained fully operational for the intended audience. This is Barnumism with a second layer. The surface message is policy. The subtext is identity, and different listeners hear entirely different things by design. Neuroscience helps explain why this works so reliably. Research published in Communication Psychology using fMRI found that when people process politically charged content, the amygdala shows significantly greater activation, as do the hippocampus and caudate, the brain's memory and reward centers. This is not about comprehension. It is about identity protection. When we hear political messaging aligned with our tribal affiliation, our analytical centers quiet down and our emotional systems take over. We are no longer evaluating an argument. We are defending a self-concept. This is the same medial prefrontal cortex mechanism we discussed in part 1, the region that drives subjective validation, accepting generic traits as uniquely personal. In political messaging, the same region processes vague populist statements as if they were written specifically for you, because to your brain, they were. There is a third dimension to political Barnumism whose importance is difficult to overstate. The role of social media algorithms as force multipliers. These platforms were not designed to inform. They were designed to maximize engagement. And the content that maximizes engagement is almost never nuanced or policy-specific. Research from MIT found that false news stories spread approximately 6 times faster on social media than true ones. The algorithmic reward structure of these platforms does not just tolerate political Barnumism, it selects for it. A slogan that means everything to everyone generates enormous organic reach. A detailed policy position generates almost none. And here is what makes this particularly dangerous. Political Barnumism does not require a cynical actor. Many politicians who use it believe their own vague messaging. They have simply learned that specificity costs votes and vagueness wins them. So what is the antidote? It is the same question James Randi applied to every psychic claim, and that Bertram Forer demonstrated in 1948. Demand specificity. When you hear a statement that feels resonant, ask these questions. Could this statement have been written for someone who holds the opposite view? If the answer is yes, you are holding a Barnum statement. and you are not being represented, you are being managed. By understanding the difference between a statement that resonates and a statement that means something, we protect the one thing no democracy can survive without: an informed citizenry. For most of this country's history, that protection came from the friction of public debate, the expectation that a claim once made would be challenged, tested, and either verified or discarded. What the past decade has removed is that friction. Social media algorithms do not reward claims that survive scrutiny. They reward claims that spread, and a Barnum statement by design spreads further than the truth ever will. That's the problem, and it's a very big problem. So what do we do with this? We do what James Randi did with the paranormal. We do what Bertram Forer did in that classroom in 1948. We apply a standard. We demand specificity. We refuse to accept the feeling of being understood as a substitute for actually being represented. The next time a political statement stops you in your tracks because it feels so perfectly aimed at you, because it seems to capture exactly what you believe, exactly what you fear, exactly what you want, treat that feeling as a warning, not a confirmation. Ask whether the evidence points to you, or merely in your direction. A citizen who cannot make that distinction is not an informed voter. In an era where democracy runs on arguments amplified by orders of magnitude online, they are reliable inventory. You are not inventory, and this channel exists to make sure you never become it. If these videos make a difference in your life, please like this one and share it with someone who will thank you later. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, this channel exists for one reason: self-empowerment, free of political or religious dogma, and free of charge, always. Until next time, I'm John Balla. Think critically and choose wisely.